pretty neat.
Nature's pretty neat, and that's why me and my friends went on a hike today. We want everyone to know how neat nature is instead of just me and the gang knowing it.
Some kinds of trees, they actually develop fur and it helps them to keep warm.
You know, some people say bright colors mean poison, but I say the brighter the friendlier.
I can see the whole forest from here.
Isn't this neat?
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Nature is pretty neat, especially in America. American soil is fertile, rivers bountiful, and mountains strong. Americans value nature, but often their interests collide with something even more valuable: money. As the country has grown, her society has become increasingly concerned with personal and governmental economics rather than conscious conservation of the planet. In 1620, the first pilgrims traveled across the Atlantic Ocean to America, desperately escaping the religious controversies and economic problems of England. These separatists formed colonies, founded in the belief that the Creator God was all-powerful. Their firm belief that God's creation was present in every piece of nature brought them very close to the land. The separatists depended on the earth to supply them with the necessary elements to live, and in the initial settlements, crop exports were the only way of keeping the settlements alive. However, throughout the 17th century, as the population in the colonies grew, colonists began to use the land for not only survival, but as a means of generating income. With incredible demand for American crops, little care was taken to preserve the soil. Colonists cleared the land by burning, which released potassium and phosphorus nutrients into the soil. Once those nutrients were depleted, along with nitrogen, which rendered the soil unfertile, the early settlers simply cleared more land. Blinded by the money that cash crops, such as tobacco, provided for the colonies, there was little regard for the well-being of their surrounding nature. The tobacco industry was one of the first instances in American history in which environmental consciousness was outweighed by economic needs. With all the raw materials and finished products being produced in the Industrial Revolution, there was a prominent need for more effective transportation. The transportation revolution in the early 19th century successfully produced massive systems of roads, railways, and waterways used to effectively and efficiently move products. The new system of transportation boosted the economy exponentially, but it came with a cost to the environment. Roadways destroyed the natural environment, prevented plant growth, and caused mass pollution from their vehicles. Not only did the Industrial Revolution mark the massive development of transportation, it also marked a wild increase in production and use of coal. Coal replaced wood and other fuel sources because it was abundant, efficient, and required less work to mine than cutting wood. Coal was also used to make iron, which was used in the manufacturing of machines and tools, as well as the construction of ships and bridges. Although the Industrial Revolution was a time of much-needed economic growth and development for the American economy, it also marked a massive shift in the relationship between humans and the earth. In 1803, Lewis and Clark's voyage, entitled The Corps of Discovery, was commissioned promptly after President Thomas Jefferson finalized the Louisiana Purchase. Jefferson created the expedition to find the Northwest Passage, a fictional waterway that was believed to connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans. Their mission was also to explore and map the new territory and develop a relationship with Native Americans to secure the economically beneficial fur trade. The explorers set off from St. Louis in 1804 with a corps of over 30 men. The expedition traveled deep into the Northwest and was guided along the way by a Native American named Sacagawea. Although the group failed to locate the Northwest Passage, they gathered information about the new territory to bring back to the East. Lewis and Clark's story is now a common fixture among American mythology. The Corps of Discovery opened up Americans to the wonderment of nature and the mysticism of the West. This was the start of a new economy, based around the West's raw goods at the expense of nature.
Times are changing and so should you! Gone are the days of non-stop work on the farm! Now you can relax at home in the evenings with your family, comforted by the fact that you're now contributing to the beginning of the end of the environment as we know it! For every hour you work, you'll make 10 cents and burn a hole in the atmosphere. But that's not this generation's problem. These horrible chemicals are super not friendly to your respiratory system, or any life form on this planet. Why not spend endless hours in the mine, not only chipping away at iron ore, but also at Earth's lifespan? But that's not all. Children can jump in on the action too. Kids as young as 4 can hop into the factories and work where adult bodies can't fit. You're doing God's work, bud. Telegram. Boop, 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 boop. Now for your chance to kickstart the obliteration of Earth.
The National Park System is the pinnacle of natural preservation in America. In 1872, President Ulysses S. Grant signed the Yellowstone National Park into law, making it the first national park in America. Overall, American interest in nature was growing, so the government set apart large portions of land for public enjoyment and wildlife protection. In 1916, Congress passed laws to create the National Park System, solidifying and further establishing the parks as an organized and integral part of America. The national parks were sometimes met with dissatisfaction, as they were viewed as a waste of potential development plots. President Theodore Roosevelt, who took office in the year 1901, used his executive power to further his passion for conservationism. In addition to passing the National Reclamation Act, which was dedicated to large-scale irrigation projects in the American West, he also set aside 200 million acres for national forests, reserves, and wildlife refuge. The biggest improvement to the parks came during the Great Depression, when Franklin Delano Roosevelt launched the New Deal to bring back the American economy. The Depression affected everyone in the United States. 1 out of every 4 American wage earners was out of work, and many people wondered where their next meal would come from. Factories shut down, farms were foreclosed, and unemployed young men, concerned that they had become a burden to their families, roamed the countryside by the hundreds of thousands. In the New Deal's legislation, FDR created the Civilian Conservation Corps. For him, this was an excellent way to blend his deep love for the outdoors and nature with his need for employment opportunities for young men. The CCC put these men to work in national forests, estate parks and national parks, fighting fires, building visitor shelters and ranger cabins, and improving campsites and trails. The CCC opened hundreds of miles of roads and trails, greatly improving tourist attendance to the parks and brought the American park system to where it is today.
We Americans are very proud of our 59 national parks. They are established pieces of land that cannot be used for mining or logging, but they also offer a different economic advantage. Tourism. My park, Yellowstone National Park, averaged nearly 1 million visitors in the peak month of July from 2012 to 2016.
To experience the benefit of American national parks, we decided to go visit one ourselves. That's when I said, get a room!
Hey kiddos, you want some snacks? Mom, get out!
If this is paradise, I wish I had a lawnmower. You got it, you got it.
World War II brought Americans both economic prosperity and a never-before-seen sense of stability. United together in the efforts to win the massive World War, Henry Ford pioneered the production technique Fordism. Fordism was the process of using unskilled workers to complete repetitive tasks. This quickly became the primary source of labor, and American production soared. When the war finally came to a close, American production continued, but in a commercial setting. More cars were produced than ever, and household objects like refrigerators and vacuums became a necessity. The rise in suburban lifestyle matched demands for these household items, which continued to fuel the economy. What fueled the economy, however, was more dirty energy. Air pollution was commonly regarded as the smell of prosperity. Factory smoke filled the air like excitement filled middle-class families as they drove off in their brand new, leaded gas-fueled cars. More cars meant a higher demand for gas, so drilling for oil became a new economic focus. Oil companies were as eager as ever to make their fortunes. Some individuals in the United States recognized a dire need for environmental action. The most notable piece of timely literature is Silent Spring, written by Rachel Carson. Silent Spring calls for humans to act responsibly and carefully in the interest of future generations of all organisms. The balance of nature is a major force in the survival of man. For some reason, these big business people seem to think that the gifts of Mother Nature became irrelevant once man entered the scene. Our current practices of damming lakes and drilling for oil and spreading pesticides on perfectly fertile land are destroying the equilibrium that was already created for us. For the sake of all current and future life on Earth, we must fight for the natural way of life. Rachel Carson's concerns were validated with the 1969 Santa Barbara oil spill. The pipe blast totaled 3 million gallons of oil spilled in the sea. The devastation was broadcasted nationwide. Images of dead seals and struggling seabirds plastered in oil alarmed the nation, triggering universal disgust with the oil industry. The spill became a flashpoint of the environmental movement as it is known today. The year 1970 saw the addition of Earth Day to calendars nationwide. Gaylord Nelson, a U.S. Senator from Wisconsin, wished to force environmental protection onto the national political agenda. Since then, Earth Day has been celebrated annually on April 22nd with rallies and community service projects. Despite pushes for environmental change, some Americans express little regard for the importance of activism. Today in the States, there is a turbulent dichotomy of environmental opinion.
My name is Tim Tom. I like to enjoy the simple things in life, like a cold glass of water after a hard day's work and a strong woman. Gotta get lumber. Whole bunch of lumber. That is some fine earth. Well, the way I see it, all this global warming talk, just a bunch of hoorah. I seen them boys up north in Congress bringing in snowballs and stuff. How can there be snow and climate change at the same time? It just don't make no sense. Well, I was talking to one of them goober climate change folk, and they told me that with all the plastic water that, people waste, we could build a bridge to the moon and back 8 times. Well, I'll be damned, let's build a bridge. Who cares about all this climate change if I can be walking to the moon on plastic bottles?
Everything I do is consciously sustainable.
Moonshine lives in a fully functioning, sustainable community. She wakes up every day at 5:30 to pet her avocados,
They grow better this way.
rinse off in the lake, and start her day.
I normally shop at Whole Foods, but sometimes I have to settle for New Seasons because it only takes me 45 minutes to walk to New Seasons. It normally takes me 2 hours to walk to Whole Foods. I don't drive. Never have. My own energy is the only energy that I need, and if I'm using any more, then I'm being selfish and damaging the ozone layer.
Moonshine has saved 19,000 kilowatts this month alone.
These people probably use plastic. Plastic wrapped candy in a plastic bag. Disgusting.
Local and organic.
Eating like this is expensive, but it's a small price to pay for saving the planet. But first, limited plastic use.
I'm Dustin Williams, and I know that climate change is real, but if you ask me, it's not changing fast enough. People are always throwing away their trash. Why don't they just put it to good use and burn it? That's why I take an hour out of every day to go to local parks and my house and pick up trash to burn. I actually run all of my appliances all day. The way I see it, if it's got a plug, it should be plugged in. I leave my car on 24/7. I get a lot of complaints from the neighbors, but they'll be thanking me when it's warm all the time. During the night, I keep everything on in my room to increase energy usage. Sure, it makes it a little harder to sleep, but you know what's worse than sleeping with lights on? Sleeping when I'm cold.
The President of the United States, Donald Trump, favors the economy over the protection of the environment. In fact, President Trump neglects the environment more than he neglects his son. Trump does not accept the dominant scientific consensus on climate change, often treats conspiracy theories that portray experts like villains as viable pieces of evidence. Recently, President Trump went to extreme measures to follow through with his promise.
We're going to cancel the Paris Climate Agreement and stop. Unbelievable. And stop all payments of the United States tax dollars to UN global warming programs.
The Paris Agreement is a deal reached between 195 countries to gradually reduce emissions that cause climate change. Trump said that the climate accord would cost America $3 trillion in lost economic activity and 6.5 million industrial jobs. Therefore, America withdrew from the agreement.
It's not all fun and games being an EPA agent, you know. Some of the stuff we do it's life or death. Hey man, check this out over here.
Oh yeah, that's definitely an issue.
Let's go, let's go, let's go!
Where did you put this plastic bottle in the trash?
Yeah.
Are you? You know what? Empty your pockets right now. Let's go.
Hey, keep your hands behind your back.
What is this? Are these tissues?
What is that?
Have you never heard of a handkerchief before? What's wrong with you? Let's go.
Come on,
Let's go.
Let's go.
Rising up, straight to the top. Have the guts, got the glory. Went the distance, now I'm not gonna stop. Just a man and his will to survive. It's the eye of the tiger, it's the thrill of the fight. Rising up to the challenge of our rival. And the last known survivor starts spreading the night. And he's watching us now in the eye of the tiger.
The United States has come to a moral crossroads. Around us, the earth is deteriorating, the ice caps are melting, and pollutants are in our water. Everyone benefits from a healthy planet, and yet the signs of our failing planet have been ignored. Alternative energy sources are being explored, but the thousands of jobs that the fossil fuel industry provides are at risk. It is evident how to sustain our planet, but what is less obvious is how to sustain the well-being of its people.
I just
3 mistresses you don't know about. Die, Mooney.
Just give me a close.
We're recording right now. Just get up in there. That's good. Pick that nose. Lick it. You won't lick it. You won't.
Do it. Do it. Yeah!
My husband doesn't love me.
You're like,
The song's name is Sex on Fire. How does that make you feel, class?
turn
Seeing them, no one knows where they are coming this way and that way.
Phones, no food, no water.
Have you seen 3 guys like wearing these hats and with a dog?
I saw 2 guys wearing those hats.
Oh, really? Okay, we'll leave. It smells good, actually.
Does when you don't high five him. He holds it. He holds it until you high five him.
Mom is just doing so good. Want some snacks?
Boop, 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 boop.
So my boobs are pretty off right now. Give me a boob.
Thank you.
Thanks. You too. I hate you.